Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
Welcome back. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560.
The Answer. Man, we sound so alike.
That's good, Jim.
Next time I'm gonna bring like a Transformers, like talk like Optimus Prime.
I don't know who that is.
Really?
I've heard of it, but I never watched it Transformers.
What are you thinking of right now?
He-Man.
I always think of He-Man.
Me too.
So we're going to get into this segment, ladies and gentlemen, after a little side tangent. It's the blag that we do weekly. And right. Attorney Leahy, Uncle Steve, Steve, what else do we call you? I think you're
Mr. Leahy.
Yeah, Mr. Leahy. What do you have this week in your blog segment?
Well, on the blog this week, we're going to talk about the 6 things you can do if you owe the IRS money. Now, we've talked about that on this show before.
Ooh, goody.
But because remember now, this is the IRS Radio Hour.
I know.
And so
I'm happy.
So I have to tell people what's going on here. Okay, and this is a very important part of it. And so I want to review what are those 6 things. Now, how you put those things together, that's the key difference. Okay, so the first thing you can do is you can pay the IRS, right? They tell you how much you owe. You write them a check. It's got to be a good check. And then you pay them. And they'll leave you alone. I always recommend that people borrow money or do whatever you can to get the IRS off your back. And sometimes you can go back and then abate the penalties and interest, because the penalties and interest is what's going to hurt you. So you can go back and abate the penalties and interest, and we'll have to talk about that at a different time, what abatement is and how that works. So the second thing you can do is you can come up with an installment agreement. And an installment agreement is an agreement between you and the IRS to pay what you can per month. There's a couple of different types of installment agreement. So one is what they call the automatic agreement. And if I owe less than $10,000, so now we're coming up to April 15th. And some people are going to have to file their tax returns, and some people won't be able to pay.
Does that mean McDonald's has 39.39-cent cheeseburgers like they usually do every year?
Don't they do that?
Yes.
So the automatic is so it's coming up on April 15th, and if I'm going to owe the IRS money and I don't have it, a lot of times what people do is they just don't file their returns. So don't do that. File your return. It's important that you file your return. But you can also file a form with the IRS that asks for an installment agreement. So if I owe less than $10,000, I just send it this form and say, hey, I'm going to pay you over a period of time. And if I've been current on all my taxes, I don't owe for any other years, they'll give it to me. They'll let me pay over a period of time. So don't be afraid if you owe money to the IRS and you can't pay them. Put in this form and ask for an automatic
There are plenty
payment.
of people just like you out there, and that's
right.
why we come to you, Attorney Leahy.
So the second type of installment agreement is what they call a full pay. And so if I owe less than $50,000, I can come up with what I do is you look at how much you owe and you divide it by 72, and maybe the IRS will agree to that.
Why 72?
Because that's the under the Fresh Start Initiative. The IRS moved it. Used to be 60 months they would agree to, but now they'll agree to a
72 months.
72-month
payout.
Oh,
that's interesting. I just thought you pulled a number.
No,
divided by 2 times 7.
Yeah, so you could pay by 7 if you owe less than $50,000. If you owe more than $50,000, then they're going to go through an analysis and they're going to figure out how much you're going to pay every month. So they won't automatically allow you to just divide by 72 and pay them. So if you make a lot of money, they're going to want their money sooner, and that's it. Now, the good one is the next one, and that's what they call a partial pay. And a partial pay is when I pay him what I can. So maybe I can't pay him everything I owe him. Maybe I can only pay him $100 a month. Well, if I could prove that to the IRS, even if I owe him $100,000, even if I owe him $200,000, if I could show the IRS that I could only pay $100, that's what they'll take. They'll agree to $100. And this is important because I think when people see this big money number that they owe, they get so frightened that they just don't file, and then they don't do anything about it, and then all the collections efforts happens, and it doesn't have to go that way.
So what number was that?
That was the second thing. The third thing you can do is what they call an offer and compromise. and this is what you hear a lot on pay pennies on the dollar. We're going to be able to you're going to be able to pay less to the IRS in a lump sum. And again, this also goes back to the Fresh Start Initiative. We talked about that before, and we'll talk about that again in the future. But they changed a lot of the parameters, so they made this offer and compromise much easier to obtain. Now, it's not, you don't go to the IRS and say, hey, will you take $5,000? And they say no, and you say, will you take $6,000? And they say no. What happens is, there's a calculation. They look at how much. Again, it goes back to your disposable income. If I can prove what my disposable income is a month, and then I multiply that by a multiplier that the IRS has. Again, that number used to be 60. So if I had $100 a month, and they multiplied it by 60, that was $6,000 I had to pay. Right now, that number is only 12. So now I only have to pay $1,200. So it makes it much more likely that I can come up with that number.
Okay, so this is number 3.
And make that work. That's right. That's number 3.
What's number 4?
Number 4 is the currently not collectible status. And this is a very important part, okay, because what people don't understand is, hey, I can't pay the IRS, so I'm going to bury my head under the sand, and I'm going to hope that they leave me alone. But you got to prove it, and they will leave you alone.
I got my toes in the water, hands in the sand.
Very good adaptation. I like.
Do you like that?
Yeah, I like
that's
that.
Actual song.
I know, but it's not hands in the sand.
Oh, is it another thing?
It is.
That's okay. I did this for radio. PG.
My show is PG. It's not ours, so I like that.
I thought we have a G-rated show. I think hands might be a little too much.
Okay, so currently not collectible goes to if I can prove to the IRS, hey, IRS, once I pay all my bills every month, I don't have any money to pay you. And if I can prove that to the IRS, then the IRS will say, okay, we're going to put you in this status. It's called currently not collectible, and we're not going to bother you. We're not going to call you. We're not going to freeze your bank accounts. We're not going to garnish any of your wages. We're still going to send you lots of notices, and your interest and everything keeps piling up, but you don't have to make any payments, so they leave you alone, and that's important. Because, again, that's the big thing that people are afraid of is what the IRS can do to me. They can freeze my bank account. They can garnish my wages. They can start taking away my assets. They can show up at my door. They can show up at my job, and try to harass me. And so again, currently,
Mr. Leahy, we know you're there.
Go away. No one's home. That's right.
Well, I guess nobody's home.
Remember, if they do knock on your door, you can always tell them, I'm going to call Mr. Leahy, my attorney.
That's what
So leave me alone. Call Mr. Leahy.
All right, let me write that down.
Right. Okay, so currently not collectible is a very powerful tool. Now, sometimes they can come back in a year or 2 years and ask you, can you pay us now? Are you making more money now? And if nothing's changed, then you're going to continue in the currently not collectible status. If something's changed and now you can start paying them, then they're going to ask you to start paying.
Can I pay them through gift cards?
I don't think so. I don't think there's an IRS
I have a Best
card.
Buy gift card for $500.
Well, that's an asset, and they could take it away from you.
I think Lois Lerner would take it.
Oh, yes, she would.
She would take it in the side.
Especially if she heard the IRS saga here on the IRS Radio Hour.
She tunes out. She actually listens to the show, but she tunes out right when we talk about the IRS saga. So what's the next thing?
Because it is the IRS, and she's a big IRS fan.
I know, but what's the next thing? So
next
what are we
thing
on?
is fifth thing, bankruptcy. 5. You can use bankruptcy. Now, not all taxes are dischargeable in bankruptcy, and bankruptcy is a complicated area of the law. Taxes in bankruptcy, complicated area of the law.
It's kind of tongue-tying.
So make sure you get somebody who understands this. If you have tax problems, I think that's a good advice, Jim. If you have tax problems and you're thinking about filing bankruptcy, get a lawyer who understands bankruptcy and IRS problems. There's not a lot of them out there, so make sure that that's who you get. Of course, I understand both, and that's what makes me a little bit different than everybody else.
Awesome.
And we'll talk about that at a different time. So there's different chapters, right? Chapter 7, Chapter 11, Chapter 13, and that's why it gets very complicated, and you have to get into your specific situation to find out which one you want to use. And sometimes it's a variation of these things. You can use currently not collectible and an installment agreement and offering compromise. So you got to put it all together.
So that's all nice and everything, but what is the 6th and final thing that I could do?
And this is the 6th thing you can do, and this is what most people do before they come to see me.
Yeah?
Is you can do nothing.
Yes! I knew it!
So
Pay up.
And if you do nothing, right, then you will eventually get liens and levies, and they'll start taking things away from you, and they'll show up at your door, and they'll go to your job, and they'll try to collect from you. Okay, so these are the 6 things. And again, you got to try to put them all in order and which one is going to work for you. And that's why you have to find someone who understands this stuff. And that's what we do here at Open Tax Resolution and the Law Office of Stephen A. Leahy. You can give them a call at 312-664-6649 and visit them on the web at chicagotaxteam.com.
For all you listeners out there, the wonderful, amazing IRS scandal is coming at you right after the commercial break. Thanks for listening and stay tuned.